Let me go to the mailbag because we've got a lot to get to. We still have the always impressive cringe Jean Pierre. We did receive a question for the mailbag by mail, by U.S. mail, with 4 stamps. Great stamp, special delivery, and William Shakespeare stamp, a Walt Disney stamp, and great stuff. The Spirit of Independence stamp, the printing press, from Tom Stone. Tom Stone in Cockeysville. Mailed it to the radio station, WMAL. And the mailbag question is, does Kamala Harris have a brain? Does Kamala Harris have a brain? You know, that's a question that we've been asking for a long time. I ran into her at the Correspondents' Dinner in Washington the other night, and I was tempted to ask her that. I just asked her if today would be yesterday by tomorrow, and she didn't know what to say because she's very easily confused.
What would you do with a brain if you had one?
Does Kamala Harris have a brain? Technically, I think that God gave her a brain, but she doesn't know what to do with it. She puts it in a bowl when she gets home and adds vinegar and spices. Does Kamala Harris have a brain? I think that's Tom. I'm going to take that as a rhetorical question because I think we all know the answer to that, don't we? I like the stamps too. Good stamp collection stuff. From Connor Owens, what's the most important advice you received from your mother and stepfather regarding the news business? Don't go into the news business. Don't go into the news business, whatever you do. And of course, being an obstinate young person, I ignored them and foolishly made the mistake of going into the news business. What is the... from my mother was in the news business and in the radio and television business. She was in the radio business with her father from the time she was 7 years old on the radio in New York City, New York, with her father, Patrick Henry Barnes, who I mentioned earlier, the World War I veteran who had us all stand for the national anthem. And my mother was just all about the truth, and she was just a truth teller, and she really drummed that into me, the truth. And she caught me one time telling her an untruth. I still remember it very vividly. And she shamed me. And I was in 4th or 5th grade, and I told her an untruth. And she dressed me down, and there was no yelling. It was, but she was curt, stern, and some finger wagging. And I think she brought me into the front hallway and had me stand there, and she sat down on the steps, and she challenged me, and I eventually confessed that I told her an untruth, and she told me how much she dislikes untruths and people that she used the word liars and cheats. She said liars and cheats, and she drummed it into me at a very early age, and I've never been a liar. I've never been a liar. I just ask my best girl. Sometimes sometimes you just shouldn't speak, but I tell the truth. And it's almost a fault of mine that I'm sometimes too truthful. So my mother taught me that. And my stepfather, Bill Plante of CBS News, my grandfather also taught me a lot of very great lessons in my very early childhood. We lived, after my father died, my mother and my 3 older brothers and I moved in with my grandparents, Patrick Henry Barnes and Eleanor Barnes. And my grandfather taught me many great lessons that are part of my life every day. I still thank him often, actually, out loud, for some of the lessons he taught. And my stepfather, CBS News reporter, just the facts. He's just, on the one hand, on the other hand. I mean, you could ask him about anything. About when I was a child, for example, the Nazis marching in Skokie, Illinois, where there was a very high concentration of Holocaust survivors and Jewish people. And I was a kid living in the area, in the general vicinity. And he would always give me on the one hand and on the other. I wanted to go down and throw rocks because, my father, who died when I was a baby, killed Nazis in World War II. And I thought, hey, here's a chance to go down and throw rocks at him and stuff. And my stepfather was, listen, on the one hand, on the other hand, he was always, well, there's this, and here's the other perspective. And it's homeless people, mentally ill people on the street. He was always on the one hand and on the other hand. Here is he started law school. He did about 1 year of law school, I think. And he would say, one side will tell you this and the other side will tell you that, which is the way that I always approached the news. You always give the other side a fair hearing. There are two sides, sometimes three sides to every story. And I would say that he drummed that into me. I would say that. From Lana, you mentioned last week a long story about John Hinckley. It was a long story. It's a long story. And the D.C. Mental Institution would love to hear all about that. It is really much too long a story to tell right here, but I was with CNN, and there was a story, probably in the Washington Post, that John Hinckley was being allowed to roam free on the grounds of St. Elizabeth's Mental Institution, where he was being held, a very large walled complex, which has since been taken over by the Department of Homeland Security. And now all the mentally ill people are wandering around the streets, stabbing people and stealing things, because that's our fix for that. But I was sent down there with a camera crew, and we got there, and I said, well, we got to the gate in a white van, a news van, with a two-man camera crew. And I said, I'm with CNN, and for some inexplicable reason, they just waved us in. They just waved us right into the gate. And then we went to the building where I knew John Hinckley was being held. There are many old, scary, red brick Victorian-era buildings on the grounds. And I went with the camera crew to the front door of the building. And the camera crew, and I'm like, well, let's grab this stuff. Let's see how far we can go, all right? And I got the two-man crew, and not a rep group, just a camera crew. And I walk up to the front, and they see us on the camera, and they buzzed the door open. And we just walked in, and we walked in, me and the camera crew. We got to the next area where, like bulletproof glass and a couple of people and an armed guard and stuff. It's a crazy mental institution in Washington, D.C. And when we got to the inner part, again, the door opens, and they wave us in. And we're walking in. And I said, we're here to see John Hinckley. We had no appointment, no plan. We were just kind of bluffing I'm bluffing our way in. And we got into the next stage and said, here to see John Hinckley. And they said, you come into this room over here. And I'm there for a couple of minutes, and somebody comes in to greet us and from the institution and said, you're the HBO crew? And I said, well, no, I'm with CNN. We're with CNN. And they said, security, you're not authorized to be in here. And I was like, well, we just got waved in. The doors kept opening, and we kept walking. And then we were chased out of the place and sent packing back to the van. And then a security car, came and escorted us off the grounds of St. Elizabeth's Mental Institution in Washington, D.C. But we almost got in. We got pretty close. It was, so I guess I told a version of that long story. There is a longer version of the story, but that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Raw, have you and or your best girl ever gone to Israel? We most certainly have. Several years ago, I'd have to look because it's all a blur. But yes, we decided to go. We were going on a sea cruise, one of our annual sea cruises, and the sea cruise was leaving out of Athens, out of Greece. And my best girl finally said, this is a good opportunity to go to Israel. We'll go to Israel for a week before hopping over. It's a pretty short hop from Tel Aviv to Athens. And so, yes, we went to Israel. We stayed in Tel Aviv for a number of days. Then we rented a car and drove to Jerusalem, stayed at the King David Hotel, hired a guy to show us around the country. You can get all over the country, in a couple of days' time. And he sat in the back seat the whole time because I was driving, which was great. My best girl in the front passenger side and me in the driver's seat. And our tour guide was like, for God's sake, we're not going to Bethlehem. They'll kill us. They'll kill us. But yeah, the old city and the King David Hotel, incredible in Jerusalem, and Tel Aviv, and the nightlife and the beaches. And we, of course, did the Dead Sea and Masada, and we did the Golan Heights. And when we arrived up on top of the Golan Heights, drove up, just as we arrived, all the windows down, nice weather, all the windows down. And you're right, that's the high ground. And you look down into Syria. And just as we pulled up, boom, boom, 2 mortar rounds landed just down the hill from us in Syria. And we got out. We've got a picture at home on a countertop of me and my best girl sitting on the ruins of a burned out tank looking down from the Golan Heights into Syria. Loved Israel. Look forward to going back. Great stuff. Yeoman Dead Inside says, what's the chore situation in the Plante household? Do your best girl and you share housework? Would love to visualize you sorting laundry or cleaning the toilet. I occasionally clean the toilet. My best girl probably does more frequently. I always take out the garbage. I very often do the dishes, and I'm very thorough doing the dishes. I do the floors, a lot of wooden floors, very dark, a lot of pollen and dust and stuff. I do the floors, I vacuum, I take out the garbage, I pretty much do the dishes. And my best girl cooks up a storm all the time. Made me breakfast this morning, hard-boiled eggs, banana, orange juice. What else did I have this morning? Good stuff. And dinners to beat the band. Last night, incredible fish dinner and broccoli and cauliflower. And we have this fish shipped in from Alaska. It's great stuff. Yes, sir. Yeah. What beer have you replaced the Tranheiser-Busch Queen of beers with? When I'm out and about, it's pretty random. DC Brau and a lot of things, but I have not had a single Bud Light since the Tranheiser-Busch episode. And what do I have? I have Yingling at home in the fridge. In fact, my best girl picked me up Yingling, and that's in the fridge right now, Yingling. And I might have a vodka every now and then, too. But I haven't had a Bud Light. I'm Yingling at home, Yingling out and about, America's oldest brewer and beer. And a lot of random stuff, DC Brau and other things when I'm about. I might have, depends on where I am. I go to a place that has 1664, this French beer, it's good. I have a lot of different things, a lot of different beers. Chicago Conservative, hi Chris, awesome show as always. What's your greatest memory of you and your father? I'm so sorry for your loss. Sounds like he was a great father and raised you right. Of my stepfather, Bill Plante, and because my biological father died when I was 5 months old, so my memories are very scant as a 5-month-old. But gosh, I got to tell you, Santa Barbara days, Ronald Reagan. My stepfather was covering the White House, and going to parties with Ronald Reagan and barbecues with Ronald Reagan in Santa Barbara. I might say that is, I'd have to think about it more, but that's up. And Ryan asked, what did Lunch Bucket Joe say to you when you asked if his brain was a broke? Hey, your brain's a broke. He just looked confused. His mouth was hanging open, and I said, you should probably dab that oatmeal off of your chin because it's unseemly. You're the President of the United States, for God's sake. Clean up. You're out in public. Cody Lester said, will you ever consider writing a memoir regarding your experiences in the news media? Predominantly your time as a Pentagon correspondent and lessons you've learned, insight you've gleaned from Bill Plante. Well, it is past time to write a book about a whole lot of things. I'll give you that. And I really, I need to get to work on that. And a whole lot of stuff would go in there, like telling the truth about the Democrats, for one thing. And a lot of talk about the news media, certainly. I don't like to talk about myself that much because I'm very, very modest and humble, particularly given how amazing I am.